10,000 years ago, when the earth was still young and wild, humans lived not in cities but in caves, forests, and mountains. They had no cars, no roads, no electricity. Life was hard, cold, and full of fear. But among these early people lived a girl named Ara, quiet but brave soul. She was only 17, but in her small tribe, she carried something more important than age or size. She carried the fire. Fire was life. Without it, the tribe would freeze in the long winter nights. They couldn't cook. They couldn't see. Wild animals stayed away from flames, but if the fire ever died, they were no longer safe. So each day, one person had to carry the clay pot with hot embers. Ara was the firekeeper. Her tribe was moving. The snow was falling. Thick and white, it covered the world like a blanket. Food had become hard to find. Their last shelter had caved in during a storm. Now, they walked. Behind Ara were 20 tired people, men, women, and children dragging old bags, furs, and wooden tools. Some had frost on their eyebrows. Some cried, but they followed Ara. They always did. She held the clay pot close to her chest, careful not to spill the glowing coals. One fall could end everything. Her fingers were red from the cold, but her eyes stayed focused. She remembered the stories. Her mother told about a hidden cave past the ice cliffs, where smoke never escaped and wild animals stayed away. Beside her walked Duma, Ara's younger sister, only 11, with sharp eyes and a stronger spirit than most adults. "Will we get there before the wolves do?" she whispered. Ara looked up at the sky. The light was fading. "If we keep moving," she said softly, "we just might." The tribe moved slowly, feet sinking into the snow with every step. Some elders had to lean on sticks. Babies cried from under the animal furs wrapped tightly around their mothers. The cold wind blew through their thin layers, but Ara never stopped. She followed the marks left behind by old memories: a bent tree, a flat rock, a frozen stream. Her father had shown her this way once, long ago. She hoped she remembered right. Then, a loud cry broke the silence. It was Kel, a young boy no older than 8. He had stepped on a hidden rock and twisted his ankle. He fell, face first, into the snow. The pain was too much. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he tried to hide his sobs. The tribe paused, uncertain what to do. Ara turned back. Without a word, she passed the clay pot to Duma, bent down, and lifted Kel onto her back. He was light, but carrying a boy and walking through snow wasn't easy. Still, Ara didn't complain. She just adjusted the fur wrap around her shoulders and kept going. "Don't cry," she whispered to Kel. "You're helping us all just by staying brave." The tribe saw this and felt something stir inside them, something warmer than the fire. Itself hope. Ara's strength was not in her muscles. It was in her will. She walked through the snow with a quiet fire in her soul. That was enough. They walked until the trees thinned. The sky turned orange, then purple. The sun dipped low, and then Ara saw it. A wall of stone covered in snow, half hidden by thorny bushes. But she recognized the shape. It was the cave. The safe place her father had once spoken of. She cried out, "We're here." The tribe rushed forward, clearing the bushes, sliding inside. The cave was dark and deep, but dry and safe. Inside, the silence felt like a gift. Duma handed the ember pot back to Ara, who placed it on the ground and started blowing gently. Slowly, the fire was born again. And that night, after many days, they had light. Inside the cave, the fire crackled gently. It was small, but it was warm. The tribe gathered around it with tired eyes and aching limbs. Some sat, some curled up on the ground, while others just leaned against the cold walls, thankful to stop moving. Ara sat near the fire, staring into the flames. Her back ached from carrying Kel. Her legs hurt from the long walk, but she didn't show it. Leaders didn't. She watched the fire, feeding it slowly with dry grass and a piece of old wood from her pouch. Duma brought out the last bundle of dried roots from her fur bag. It wasn't much, just enough for the children. The adults stayed hungry. "I'll find something tomorrow," Ara whispered. Duma nodded. She was strong, but even she looked thinner than before. A woman named Lena, who had lost her husband last spring, pulled her little daughter closer and hummed a soft tune. It was an old lullaby, one that reminded everyone of warmer times, before the long winter swallowed the land. Outside, the wind howled. Snow piled up, but the fire stayed. They were safe for now. That night, dreams filled the cave. Some dreamed of warm rains, some of full bellies, but Ara did not sleep. She sat quietly, watching the fire fade into red embers. Her mind was full of thoughts. She thought of her father, who once said, "To lead is to carry pain and not drop it." She remembered his voice, his rough hands building traps, his stories about the world before this bitter winter. She missed him, and yet she felt he was with her. When the flames died down, she placed her hand on the clay pot again, carefully tucking the embers inside for morning. Tomorrow, she would hunt. Tomorrow, she would feed her people. And with that promise in her heart, she lay down beside her sister and closed her eyes just for a while. The pale light of morning crept into the cave like a shy visitor. Frost clung to the edges of the rocky walls, and the wind outside whispered through tiny cracks. It was cold, but not as bitter as the days before. The fire, though small, still glowed in the center of the cave, casting orange shadows over the sleeping tribe. Ara opened her eyes before the others. She had always been the first awake. The weight of leadership did not let her rest long. She stretched her legs quietly and looked around. Duma was curled beside her, holding a fur close to her chest. Kel lay near the fire, his ankles still wrapped in hide, but his face was peaceful now. Others lay in stillness, old Ebo with his slow breathing, Lena holding her daughter like treasure, Mako and Ren with their spears close at hand even in sleep. Ara stood up slowly, careful not to wake anyone. She moved toward the clay pot near the fire, checking the embers. They were still hot. She stirred them gently with a stick and added dry moss from the pouch at her side. Smoke curled upward. Good. The fire could be revived later. It meant safety. She wrapped her feet tightly in deer fur, tied the straps around her ankles, and picked up her spear. Her hands felt stiff from the cold, but she had learned to ignore pain. Pain was part of life now, like breathing. Stepping outside the cave, she was met by silence. The forest stood still, trees heavy with snow. The sky was a dull white, blending into the horizon. The world looked like a blank page. Ara took a deep breath and began walking. Every step was slow. The snow was deep in some places, and slippery. In others, she followed a narrow path between the trees, careful not to leave a clear trail for predators. Her eyes scanned the ground. She looked for broken twigs, bent grass, small tracks, anything that told her a creature had passed through. The snow was soft and undisturbed. She walked for what felt like hours, circling the forest, listening. Then there it was, a fresh print, small, sharp-edged. Deer. Ara crouched low. Her eyes narrowed. She followed the trail slowly. Each hoofprint led her deeper into the forest, through bushes and under low branches. She was silent, like a shadow. And then she saw it, a deer, thin and weak, nibbling on a bare patch of bark beneath a tree. It moved slowly, unaware of her. Its ribs showed. It was tired, alone. Ara's breath slowed. She crouched behind a snow-covered bush. Her fingers gripped the spear. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. When you hunt, don't think, just become the wind. She rose slowly, aimed and held her breath. The spear flew. It struck the deer behind the shoulder. The animal stumbled forward, then collapsed into the snow. It kicked once, twice, then lay still. Ara ran forward, breathing hard. Her heart pounded. She knelt beside the deer and placed her hand on its side. It was still warm. I thank you, she whispered, voice shaking. Your gift keeps us alive. She took a long rope from her pouch and tied it around the deer's legs. The drag would be hard, but she had no choice. She heaved. Step by step she pulled the deer through the snow. Her legs burned. Her arms trembled. But she did not stop. She thought of Duma's thin face, of Kel's broken ankle, of Ebo's voice telling stories by firelight. They needed this. Her journey back was slow. She paused often to rest, leaning on trees, catching her breath. The deer left a trail of blood in the snow, but Ara did not worry. The wolves would smell it, but she would get there first. When she finally reached the cave, the tribe had already woken. Duma was by the fire, warming her hands. Ebo sat up slowly. Mako was checking the traps they had set near the entrance. Then they saw her, Ara dragging the deer behind her, covered in snow, her face red with wind and cold. A cry went up. Children ran to her. Duma dropped her furs and ran straight into her arms. You did it, she shouted. Lena began crying, thank the spirits. Ebo stood slowly and placed his hand over his heart. Our firekeeper brings not just warmth, but life. Mako and Ren helped cut the ropes. They lifted the deer into the cave and began preparing it. Duma fed the fire more wood. The smell of smoke and fresh meat soon filled the air. Ara sat down near the fire, exhausted. Her arms ached, her back was sore, but inside, she felt something warm, not just from the flames. She felt proud. That night they roasted the meat carefully. Everyone received a share, children first, elders next, then the rest. It was the first real meal in many days. Lena's daughter giggled after her first bite, lying near the fire, smiled with grease on his face. Duma placed a piece in Ara's hand and whispered, You are like Mama. You always make things okay. Ara couldn't reply. Her heart was too full. They sang that night, old songs, gentle ones, songs their parents used to sing. Some clapped softly, some just hummed, and the fire burned tall. Outside, snow still fell, but inside, for the first time in weeks, there was warmth, not just in body but in spirit. The cave was glowing with firelight, and the smell of roasted meat still lingered in the air. After everyone had eaten, the tribe sat in a wide circle around the fire. The stones beneath them were cold, but their hearts were warm. Children leaned against their mothers, men sat beside their friends. Everyone felt a little more alive in the center of it all. Old Ebo slowly stood up. His back was bent like the old trees, and his knees cracked when he moved. But his voice, when it came, still carried power. Tonight, Ebo began, we do not just eat, we remember. The tribe quieted. Even the youngest child turned their eyes toward him. Ebo's face was thin, lined with deep wrinkles. His eyes were cloudy with age, but his memory was sharp. He had lived through more winters than anyone in the tribe. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of generations. Long ago, he said, before this cold, the land was different, green, warm, rivers sang, trees touched the sky. My mother's mother saw it. Some of the children leaned forward, their eyes wide, imagining a world with no snow. There were berries on bushes and fruit on trees. Fish danced in streams. Deer were fat. The sky was blue, and the stars only came after long, lazy days. Ara watched him from across the fire. She had heard parts of this story before, but never with such silence from the tribe. Tonight it felt different, but the warmth did not. Stayed Ebo continued. One day, the sky changed. Cold winds blew from the north. The sun grew quiet. Then came the snow. He paused and held out his hands to the fire. We moved like birds, like wolves. We followed the animals. We followed the stories. Ebo looked at Ara, then at the others. Not all made it. Some stayed too long in one place. Some waited for warmth to return. It did not. But those who moved, those who listened to the wind and watched the stars, they lived. His eyes moved to the cave walls, where shadows danced. We are not the first to sit in caves like this. Others sat like us. They shared meat, shared stories, shared fear. But they did not let the fire go out. He lifted a finger, slow and trembling. This is why we remember. Because someday others will sit where we sit now. Maybe our children. Maybe strangers. And if they remember us, they will live too. The fire crackled, as if in agreement. Lena held her daughter closer. Duma reached for Ara's hand. Mako nodded silently. Even Kel, still weak, whispered, I will remember. Ebo smiled. He took a stick and dipped the tip into the ash at the edge of the fire. Then, slowly, he walked to the wall of the cave. With shaky hands, he began to draw a circle for the sun, a line for the river, a shape that looked like a deer, a flame for the fire. Then he drew many small footprints. These are ours, he said. Our journey, they may fade, but they were real. The tribe watched in silence. Ara felt something rise in her chest. It was not pride or sorrow. It was something older, something deep. She stood and walked to the wall. Next to Ebo's drawings, she took a piece of charcoal from the fire and drew a hand, her own. The mark of her presence. One by one, the others joined. Children pressed hands against the rock. Adults made symbols. Some wrote their names using sticks and dots. The wall became alive with memory. When they were done, they sat again, by the fire. We do not have books, Ebo said, but we have fire, we have stories, we have each other. That is enough. Ira looked at the flames. They danced gently, as if they too were listening. She thought of her father, who had once told her that stories were the fire of the soul. Without them, people grew cold inside. That night, sleep came easily to all. Except Ara. She lay awake, watching the drawings on the wall, thinking about the future. She knew the food would not last. The snow still covered the earth. Wolves still waited in the shadows. But now, the tribe had something stronger than meat or fire. They had memory. They had unity. They had a story. And stories could survive even the harshest winters. 3 days passed in the cave. The meat was stretched thin, shared carefully. The tribe rationed it with discipline, but hunger returned. Bellies growled. Children cried at night again. Outside, the snow deepened. Traps they set caught nothing. Even the birds had flown away. One evening, 2 hunters, Mako and Ren, returned empty-handed, faces tight with worry. We found bones, Ren whispered. Other people were here. They did not make it. Fear spread like smoke. Ara stood. Her voice was calm but firm. We are not them. We are not bones. We are breath and fire. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat at the edge of the cave, watching the snow fall like slow ash. She saw shapes in the distant shadows, or maybe just fear, but she stayed, because someone had to watch the fire dot in the middle of the next day, while Duma and 2 others were gathering wood near the trees. They saw something strange, a figure stumbling in the distance, a man alone, half covered in frost. He was not one of them. They ran to Ara. She rushed out with others. The man collapsed just as they reached him. He was breathing, but barely. His hands were blue, his lips cracked. They carried him inside. Lena covered him with warm fur. Ebo placed his hand on the man's head and whispered old words of healing. When the man finally opened his eyes, he said, "Thank you." His name was Torin. He came from a tribe far north. He had been alone for 7 days, walking without food, searching for shelter. Era looked at the others. Some wanted to send him away. "We barely have enough for us," one said, but Era shook her head. "If we turn away a freezing man, we turn away our own soul." They gave Torin soup and fire, and he in turn gave them something unexpected. Knowledge. Torin had seen the great animals move, large strong beasts with long fur and thick meat. He called them oxen, and he knew where they roamed. A day's journey south. The tribe had hope again. That night, Ara called everyone to sit around the fire. Even the children knew it was important. The cave was silent except for the fires. "Crackle, we cannot stay here forever," she began. "We have warmth, yes, but not enough food." Toren sat nearby, still weak, but his eyes were sharp. "I know where the great oxen go," he said. "They move slowly. If we are smart, we can follow their tracks. Hunt 1. Feed the tribe for many days. There were murmurs. It's far, said Mako, and dangerous. But waiting here is also dangerous, said Duma. Ebo raised a hand. Let the fire choose, he said. It was an old tradition. They would place 2 pieces of wood in the fire, one for stay, one for go. Whichever caught fire first would be the tribe's answer. Ara nodded and placed the sticks in. Seconds passed, then Go flared up, bright and strong. The decision was made. Tomorrow, they would leave at sunrise. They packed what little they had. Fur blankets, tools, the clay pot with glowing embers. The children were wrapped tightly and lifted onto sleds made of branches. Era led again. Torin walked beside her, limping slightly. Duma carried a spear nearly her size. Even Ebo walked, leaning on 2 sticks. The snow was deeper now, but the skies were clear. They walked for hours, then, finally dashed tracks. Wide, heavy prints in the snow. Oxen. Excitement filled the tribe. Their steps quickened, but by sundown they were tired. No animals in sight. They found shelter under a rock ledge and lit a fire. Toron taught them how to mimic the oxen's call. It might bring them closer, he said. Ara watched the stars as the tribe fell asleep. She whispered thanks to the sky for every breath. Tomorrow, they would try again. At dawn they saw them. In a snowy field, 5 massive oxen stood grazing under the sun. Their fur was long, thick as rugs. Their horns curved like crescent moons. The tribe watched in awe. Ara signaled. Quietly, they moved around the beasts. They chose the smallest, weakest one. The others would be too strong. Torin showed them how. To dig a pit trap, it took half the day. The tribe worked together, men, women, children. They covered the pit with branches and snow, then they waited. Toron made the oxen call again, and it came. One curious oxen stepped closer and fell into the pit. It roared, it struggled. But it was trapped. The tribe acted quickly. With arrows and spears, they brought it down. It was not easy. They cried, they prayed, but they did it. When it was over, they had meat, fur, bone, and oil. Enough for weeks. They danced in the snow. Era stood in silence, tears in her eyes. Not from sadness, from pride. They found another cave nearby, a wide one, deep and dry. There, they made a camp. They roasted the oxen meat over fire. The smell made mouths water. Even the weakest child smiled again. For the first time in weeks, the tribe was full. That night, Ebo told stories of the old sun. Duma sang, the others clapped. The snow outside fell quietly, as if listening. Torin sat next to Ara. You saved me. He said no. She replied, you helped us all. He smiled. Then maybe it was meant to be. Ara didn't know about fate, but she believed in fire. In walking, never giving up. The feast became memory. A night they would speak of forever. Days passed. The tribe stayed warm. They made clothes from oxen hide, tools from bones, oil from fat. They grew stronger. Era began teaching the younger children how to track animals. Duma showed them how to tie rope. Everyone gave what they knew. They carved signs on the cave walls, drawings of oxen, snow, fire, and footprints. Stories for the future. Toran and Ura spoke often. He told her about the stars, about how they could guide people who were lost. We leave marks, he said, pointing at the cave wall, so those after us remember. Ara understood. Survival wasn't just about living, it was about being remembered. One afternoon, clouds rolled in fast. Snow fell harder than before. Winds howled like beasts. The cave shook. Some were afraid, but the fire burned strong. We've faced worse, Ara said calmly. And they had. They sealed the cave with furs, took turns watching the fire, sang to keep spirits high. The storm lasted 3 days, but no one died. When the skies cleared, the children ran out, laughing, leaving trails in the snow. They were alive and stronger than ever. Spring was coming. The ice began to melt. Birds returned to Era. Looked south. She felt something inside her like wind in a sail. We must move again. She told Ebo to find the green lands you spoke of. He nodded. You were ready. The tribe prepared. They would walk again, but not in fear. In hope, they carried food, fur, fire, and their stories. They had survived the darkest winter together. On the morning they left, Ira stood at the cave's edge. She looked back once, at the place that saved them. At the drawings on the wall, at the ashes of the fire that gave them life. She took one last ember in the clay pot. Then turned forward. The footprints they left in the snow. That day would vanish, but the strength behind each step would echo through time, because 10,000 years ago, it wasn't kings or cities that shaped humanity, it was people. Like Era, people who carried the fire and never let it go out. 10,000 years ago, before roads, electricity, or buildings, the world was full of danger. There were no towns, no machines, only forests, rivers, wild animals, and small groups of people trying to survive. In this world, fire was the greatest treasure. It gave warmth, light, and safety from animals. Without fire, people could freeze, starve, or be attacked in the night. In one part of this ancient land, a tribe of only 20 people walked through the snow, tired and cold. Among them was a 17-year-old girl named Ara. She wasn't the strongest, she didn't speak the most, but in her arms, she carried a small clay pot inside it, glowing embers. The last bit of fire they had. Ara was the tribe's firekeeper. She had learned from her father how to keep the embers alive. Her job was important. If she let the fire die, they would all suffer. No one else knew how to restart it. Not in this cold. The wood was too wet, the air too thin. Every step Ara took was careful. The snow came up to her knees. The wind bit her skin. Still, she wrapped her arms around the pot, warming her chest, as much as the fire inside. Her eyes scanned the land ahead looking for shelter. Her mind was tired but focused. Behind her, others followed. There was Ebo, the elder with a long beard and stories older than the trees. He leaned on a walking stick made of bone. Beside him walked Lena, a young mother carrying her small daughter in a sling. Two hunters, Maiko and Ren, moved in silence with spears in hand. The rest, children and women mostly, moved in quiet lines, each holding on to someone else. Beside Ara walked her little sister Duma, just 11 but already brave. Duma didn't complain. She had learned young that complaining didn't change the cold. Her small hand held onto Ara's fur wrapped tightly. "Will we find the cave soon?" Duma whispered. Ara didn't answer right away. Her breath showed in the air. The sky was gray and heavy with snow. The trees were bare, their branches like claws. "We'll find it," Ara said softly, "before the sun leaves us." She hoped it was true. She remembered her father's words. He had once taken her north to a cave hidden near a bend in the river. It was dry, deep, and safe. He called it the sleeping place. If they could reach it before night, they'd have a chance, but the wind howled louder now. Suddenly a sharp cry broke the silence. It was Kel, a small boy near the back. He had stepped on a hidden rock and twisted his ankle. He fell hard into the snow, screaming in pain. Everyone stopped. Ara turned quickly and walked back to him. Kel was crying, biting his mitten to stay quiet. His mother rushed to him, tears already in her eyes. "He can't walk," she said, panicked. Ara looked at the sky. The light was fading fast. They couldn't leave him behind. She handed the firepot to Duma and bent down. "Help me lift him," she said, with care. She placed Kel onto her back, adjusting his weight. He was light, but with the snow, the slope, and the cold, every extra pound mattered. Still, Ara didn't flinch. She nodded to the group. "Keep moving." The tribe followed. Again, with each step, Ara's legs burned. Her arms trembled, but she didn't stop. She thought of her mother who died last winter in a storm. She thought of her father who vanished near the cliffs. She thought of her people who trusted her, followed her, even when they were afraid, walked until the trees opened wide. There, half hidden behind snow and brush, stood a dark entrance in a cliff face. The cave, the sleeping place. Ara whispered. She hurried forward, stepping over roots and ducking under low branches. The opening was small, but as they cleared the snow, it revealed a deep tunnel. The air inside smelled of earth and safety. They rushed in. The hunters checked first for bears or wolves. It was empty. One by one, the tribe entered the cave. Their breath echoed against the stone. Lena lit a torch using the embers from the pot. The fire caught. Light spread across the walls, showing space enough for all. Ara gently placed Kel down near a wall and gave him a fur wrap. Duma brought more sticks and grass for the fire. Within minutes, warmth returned. The tribe huddled together. Children curled near the fire. Ebo sat down with a heavy sigh and began to hum an old tune. The hunters leaned their spears against the wall and watched the shadows, but Ara didn't sit. She stood at the cave's edge, staring out at the falling snow. The storm would be worse. By night, they had made it just in time. She turned to Duma and smiled faintly. "We're safe for now." Duma handed her a small piece of dried meat. It wasn't much, just enough to quiet the hunger. Ara sat down finally, stretching her legs. The fire crackled beside her. Her body ached. Her back throbbed from carrying Kel, but her heart felt light. They had survived another day, and in a world where survival was a gift, that was everything.